Hey everybody, this is going to be a very quick tutorial on the Analog Rytm Mark II, or Analog Rytm Mark II as they say in Sweden. It's by Electron, as you can tell, and it's the second iteration of their amazing drum machine. I never got to try the machine drum, but what I've seen of it looks really cool, so I guess this is kind of like a third generation if you think of it that way. Okay, I think this is one of the best drum machines in existence. I love it very, very, very much. So when you power it on, you're going to see the OS number in the lower right hand corner. I've got the current OS, and on the back here you're going to have your headphones, your main outs, and then you have a breakout of each out for each individual track. There's 12 tracks and they're specific to each pad. And then you're also going to have audio in for recording and external in so that sounds can come in while you're just playing that you don't necessarily want to record. As a basic overview, this tutorial is just going to get you up and running and started. So perhaps you want to buy this and try it out. There are more in-depth tutorials, I think, online. If you look at Carl's Cabinet of Curiosities on YouTube, or Bo Beats, or Jade Wii with Dawless Jamming, you can check out their tutorials. They get a little more in depth. First things first, we have the project menu, which is where you are going to load samples. It's important to note that this has an internal analog engine, and each track has a specific sound from the analog engine that resides on that track only. So you have your bass, snare, and claps down here, and your bass drum could be on these three. And you'll notice this little equals thing here means that this is a choke track. Automatically, it's a choke track. So if I'm clicking this one and I hit this one, it's going to choke the other one. It's the same here. So anywhere you see these little equals is a choke track. It's automatically set for the internal engine. The internal engine is the source engine that you see here. And as you can see, I have the level down on it. And then the sample engine is here, and I have the sound up. So on this track, that's my sample that's being played. I can turn that down, and that's what's on the actual engine. If I wanted to load an engine sound here, then the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to hit Function and Sound, and then I go into the sound browser, and that's where you select the sounds for each one. If I hit yes, you notice that these are all tom sounds. If I switch the track down here, I'm going to have kick and snare sounds. So I can have my internal analog engine kicks and snares here, toms here, hi-hats here. You cannot change that. You can't put hi-hats down here or anything like that for the internal engine only. However, if we go to the sample page, you can load samples wherever you want. So I can set these up however is comfortable for me to play. So I could have kicks up here, I could have a kick. Oftentimes I'll do like a kick, a snare, and then a hi-hat, and then like a cymbal or something like that. And then I can have 3 kits or something like that on one kit. You can also have a combination, as you can tell, of both the internal engine and the sample engine here. Okay, so like I mentioned, there's 12 tracks. They have their own individual outs, or they can all come out the main out. Like I said, you can either have a combination of the internal analog engine and a sample, or you can have just the sample or just the analog engine on each one of these tracks, okay? The way you select a track is you hit track and then the corresponding track. Clearly you sample it by just hitting each pad. And then the way you edit it is you have everything up here from like your filter to your amp section to your LFO section, and you can assign each to the tracks. Then you can use the function button to go a little bit deeper into some of these menus and check some things out. Again, under the project section is where the projects, samples, and everything are. So if you want to load samples to your project, the way you do it is you go into the sample page, and then you can go down here and you can preview your samples, select whichever ones you want by hitting yes. And then if I want to load them to the project, I go over here and click right and then go to load to project. Do you want to load these samples? Yes. Cool. It just occurred to me, you also want to check out Cuckoo. He does some tutorials on the Analog Rytm Mark I, and I think a little bit on the Analog Rytm Mark II, but basically they're the same thing. The nice thing about the Mark II is that they've broken out a lot of the sort of menu divey things that existed before and put them all accessible to you. So as I mentioned, all the tracks are accessible from the play button. You have a mute button, so if you're playing, you can mute things while you're playing. Then you have a chromatic section, so it's chromatic to whatever you're putting on there. So you might put like a synth piece on there, and then you can have chromatic keys. You have a scene section, which if I go to here and press play, you notice I have some scenes. Scenes and performances are independent to each bank. So a bank has a ton of patterns on it, 16 patterns, and each bank can contain different scenes if you want. So the way you do that is you press play and, whoops. So the way you select a pattern is you basically just hit the button and then you have a little bit of time. See how when I hit that, it's counting down. I have time to select a new one. Now it's going to play at the end of my pattern and to start the new one. And then it goes to that one. You can set it internally if you want to have it play, like once you change a pattern, it goes automatically to that pattern instead of waiting to play through until the end. These patterns, as you can tell, are 32 steps. The way you set that really quickly is you hit function and page, and then I can extend it, or I can leave it where it was. If I already have a pattern on here and I extend it, then it's going to function and page will close it. Then it's going to make it 64 steps, but it's going to copy those previous 32 and just paste them again, so you don't have a blank spot, which is really cool. We'll get into scenes and performances here in just a second. What I want to talk about now, oh, by the way, play button is where you can select the tracks by holding track and whatever, but you can do that in any place. If I hold track and go here, you can see that's the one that's highlighted, right? But if I want to get back to play, I can either hit play to go back, or if I'm in scenes, I can just hit scene again and it automatically goes back to the original thing. Same thing with chromatic. If I just hit it again, it goes back to the normal play mode. Let's talk about ways to get sounds into your analog rhythm. As I told you, it has an internal engine, and you select those by hitting function and sound, and then you can go into the sound browser. I also mentioned that it has samples as well. Well, how do you get samples in there? I've plugged in a Teenage Engineering KO, and you just simply hit the direct button up here. It goes automatically to the sample page. I've already set the audio in to left and right because I have a stereo signal coming in. You can turn the knob to change that if you want. And also, if you can't hear anything, check the monitor because it'll probably say no. Because if I have no, you're not going to hear anything. But you're seeing that it's getting sound, and why am I not hearing anything? Well, if I click yes, there it is. I can also adjust the threshold so that it will automatically record once I hit yes for arm. However, you can also just hit function and yes and go, and then hit yes again. It'll normalize it, and then these top four buttons are how you're going to set your trim point so you're slicing it. These two here are sort of like a zoom level. So for this one, if I turn it and then move it, it's moving faster. If I turn it the other way and then move it, it moves at a really slow increment. And you'd be able to see the waveform up here. So watch, see I'm coming into the waveform. So in this way, I can like zoom really close and get exactly on the waveform. Same thing for this guy. I can go over here and come to the beginning of my waveform, and then I can zoom so that I can get really fine and really close to it like that, right? And then I just want to set my point here, my end point. And if you hit function yes, we can preview it. If I hit yes to trim, then you also have a second option here to really fine tune it if you want to get in there and just make it exactly how you want. And then as you can tell, you would hit yes for trim, yes for save, and you put in a name. If you hit function and clear, it clears it, and then you just use the arrows and function to select a letter, K-I-K, and then you would just hit yes, saving, and then it asks you, do you want to assign it to a track? You could hit the track you want it to go to, or you could say no to skip. And function and no clears your whole thing here. So let's not monitor, and let's get out of this page. So there you go. And like I said, you go into the project section and you go into samples and you can load them to your project. And then once you have them loaded to your project, you go to your sample page, and here is where you would find everything loaded to your project, right? I'm actually, see how this is highlighted? Just watch out for that. This is the track that I'm actually working on. So see how it's changing? Whereas I was thinking I was on this one for a second. Now you have to go here like that and just hit yes. And then, like I said, the level here for it. Okay, so now we know that we can have audio coming in to just play along with us. Like maybe you have the analog keys and you could just run an external in, and it has the audio coming through this. The audio in is where you record in samples. Okay, so how are we going to record things? So let's go to a new bank and hit that. It's probably going to load a new kit. So if I wanted to load one of my own kits, if I just hit function and kit, then I have the kit menu. So kit is down here, sound, track, pattern, etc. So I could go down here and say load kit. I have some kits. Maybe I want that one. Hit yes, kit's loaded. So if I want to record, there's a couple ways we can do it. We can get to the metronome page here if we want a metronome by holding function and just hitting the button. And then you have all the settings for the metronome. If I hit yes, then it's active. But a quicker way to get the metronome running is you can just hold function and then hold this until it says click on. Now when I press play, you're going to hear the click. Oh, it loaded a pattern. Let me go to a new. There we go. Okay, now you can hear the click. Right, now that I'm in a new bank and everything like that, if I hit kit, I want to load kit. I'm going to load this one, yes. Cool. So now I'm going to record live, right? There's two ways you can record. You can record live or you can step record. So sometimes I do a combination of both. I think it's fun to try out your own method. So you're going to hold record and play at the same time. And when this is blinking, I accidentally just clicked it, so now it's just in step record mode, right? But if I hit it and it's blinking, that means I'm able to play. I think I'm clipping a little bit here, sorry about that. Anyway, so if you want to correct some of that on this track, let's say I want to quantize it. Quantize is here, and you see it's in blue, so I hit function and the trigger, and it says I can quantize global or I can quantize track 1. If I want to quantize global, I can turn this all the way up, and we can see what that sounds like. Maybe I want to turn the click off, but maybe I don't want to global quantize. Maybe I just want to quantize this one. Like that. So if I want to quantize a different track, whatever track you select, you notice it's there and you can quantize it. So that's how you live record. And then the other way to record is step record, but you can also fix things that way as well. So on this track, you can see where the triggers lie. You can also adjust micro timing by holding down a trigger, an active trigger, and pressing these left or right buttons. You can see where I was. I was a little bit right of center. Here, I was just almost dead on. Here. So what that means, so it was so far off of center, when I press play for the first time, it's actually not going to trigger until it returns around, because it's sort of acting like it's triggering over here. So I'd have to fix that if I wanted to hear it. Just so you know, let me press play. You're not going to hear this one until it comes around. See? Now it plays, right? So if I want to fix that, we just adjust the micro timing, make it dead center, and there we go, it's playing. Right? So in that way, you can adjust your timing that way. You can say, oh, I wanted this trigger, I like the timing on it and maybe whatever effects on it, but I want it on 5. So you would just hold the button and you could hit copy, copied one trig, paste, and you can just delete it off of there, and then you can press play. And likewise, you can program all your tracks by doing that. And then again, maybe you want, let's go to the hi-hats here. Maybe we just want, right? And we can adjust timing. We can hold down a trigger and we can go to the trigger page and we can set conditional trigs, which means maybe it happens 2 out of 3 times. We can also go to the source page and we can adjust the volume. So maybe it's a little bit quieter. So we're starting to get a little bit of swing, right? So in that way, you can quickly program a beat, you can adjust swing, you can add velocity sensitivity to the thing, and it's really awesome. Now, we've covered recording for either live recording or step recording. Now let's talk about the banks. As I mentioned, each bank can have 16 patterns. You can use the song or the chain mode to chain all these things together and create like songs. But the octatrack, or sorry, the Analog Rytm is really, really fun to perform live with. I actually prefer it that way. So I barely ever use the song mode just because I like playing with it live. And there's so many options that you have. As I mentioned, we have a chromatic section and we have a mute section. So if I'm, let's go to bank C, number 1, right? I previously recorded some things and I messed with one of the sounds, so it has the internal sound going here. Let's see. Track, and then source, turn that down. There. That's what it should sound like. Okay, so if we're playing that one, you can basically have, you could copy this pattern by holding copy and then, oops, and then let me get out of here, and then holding this and then going paste. Oops, you saw a little menu come up. Sorry about that. What you want to do is you want to hold here and then hold paste, and it's saying paste pattern. You got to hold it until it counts down. Now I can go to pattern 2 and it's the same pattern. But in this way, you could build something and then you could copy them along, maybe keep like on 16, like the full pattern, copy it and then start deleting things or whatever, and like making different patterns that you can switch between. And then you can use song mode to switch them, or you can do them live. But one of the cool things you can also do is you can go into mute and you can so as you can see, you can play it live, right? Then you can go into chromatic mode, and if you were on this track, you have right, the chromatic thing. You could play, you could record that live actually. Let's do that. Right? I mean, it doesn't really sound great, but go in here, turn this off. So let's just say we're happy with that. We can also go into scenes and performances, and we can set up some scenes and performances. If I go here and show you, I already have some scenes and performances set. So let me show you what those are like. So we got a little beat going on. So you can hear that I've got settings for each track on, or just one track on these scenes. And when you click it, you can have some mutes set up that way. So I can have my mutes all set up, and that scene has those mutes. And if you just click it a second time, it turns it off. Okay? And performances are basically like, they're velocity sensitive, so the more you press down, the more it turns into that effect. And likewise, with the Q perform button, you can click whatever one you want to use, and then this knob then controls it. And you can also do multiple at a time. Right, so let's go to this scene, turn that off, go back to here, and right? Cool thing about performances is you can press multiple of them at a time, or you can assign one of them to the knob so you have a little bit more fine control over the whole thing. All right, so how do we record a scene or a performance? Well, they're the exact same for either one. So what we're going to do is let's just do a performance, because the scene's pretty straightforward, but I want to show you something with a performance. So what we're going to do is we're going to press play. You hold function and you press one of the pads. Now that is a new performance pad. And the way you're going to record to that is whatever track you're on, say we want to mess with the hi-hats, right? So I have track held, now that's the hi-hat thing. Depending on how hard you press this, and then whatever you set the setting to, that's the maximum velocity you have to press to get to that maximum setting. So if we want to adjust say the filter and maybe some reverb on the hi-hats, I'm going to press down pretty hard, and I'm going to turn the reverb up, and you can see it's affecting that track, maybe a little delay. I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to mess with the frequency a little bit and some resonance. Okay, so press play. With the filter, it's basically turning it off. So to get the maximum effect that I set, I have to press just as hard as I was pressing when I recorded that sound. And it's not just for one track. You could then go to the snare track, and then I hold this down and I can so there you go. Right, and then if I want to assign the cue performance to that, you just click it and it's on that one, and now I can use this knob to so it's velocity sensitive. This one's pretty touchy, so if I just barely press it, it gives it a little bit of that effect that I set on it. Cool, so that's how you set scenes and performances. It's probably obvious to you that tempo is here. If I click tempo, you can see your tempo and you can adjust it here. Like that. Okay, so I guess at this point we're done. I think this is a really good general overview. I want you to think of this in the terms of the project menu is where you set like MIDI and all the global settings, and you also can set your samples. This thing can hold on each track, there's 12 tracks, it can hold samples and internal audio engine. You can have any combination of both. It could just be the sample or just the audio engine, or it could be a combination of the two. And you set those here by source, going to source and the level, the volume, and then all the other parameters like tune, etc. Sample is set here. You can tell I have source all the way down and sample here, so it's not going to play the internal audio engine on this track. It's just going to play the sample that's on there, which sounds like that. Like I said, you can hear I have a combo here, right? So that's what the internal audio engine sounds like. If I want to change that, I'm only going to be able to set tom sounds from the internal audio engine, hat type sounds and cowbell type sounds up here, and snare drum and kick drums down here. So I want you to think of it as two sound engines, basically sample and internal audio engine. You have your menu for all your parameters. Most of your functions are broken out into buttons, so just look at what the function is below here for an alternate menu by holding function and that button, and then read the main text on the button by just hitting the button. It tells you what it's all about, like triggers, source, sample, filter, your whole filter page, your amp page. Sometimes you can double click a button like that and it'll do other functions. You set your song mode down here. I mean, you have like effects page here where you can dive into the reverb and all that stuff. And then you have your banks. You have 16 patterns per bank and you have 8 banks. Yeah, it has like a metronome. It has tons of outs. Even each track is broken as an individual out. And then the cool thing about this is for performance, you can either make a song mode that has, your performance is all in it, or I like to play it live and I don't really worry about the song mode. I just break out some of my individual patterns on here. Like you can see here, I have a bunch of patterns. So it might just be like, and again, I've turned this tom up, so if I go back to the snare I had, now it sounds more like the pattern that I had going. So, if something sounds off, you might have like accidentally turned up the audio engine and turned off the sample or vice versa. Remember, the audio engine can stay only on their pads and the samples can lie anywhere. So if you want to build your own drum kit, you can do that with the samples. The last thing I'll mention is the scene and performance mode. That's kind of, along with the mutes and the chromatic, that's what really makes this a performance machine. It sort of sets it apart from the Digitact, and I think even more fun than the Octatrack. The Octatrack has a slider and it has its like little scenes, but I really don't find it as fun to play as I do with the scenes and performances on this thing, because it's just insane. So yeah, I really like going in here and being able to have like a mute section or whatever. And as you can tell on this, hear how the kick changes? I've actually got the wrong kick from the internal engine, but what I did here was you're able to, in a scene, switch out whatever sample is on this thing. So that's really cool. You can have like different kits just jump in, all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps up this generalized overview. I think with that knowledge, if you just know that, basically your projects are here, all your performance patterns are here, each track lies on a pad, it can hold either the internal engine or a sample. Over here is where you have your breakout of your LFO, your amp, your filter, your sample for each individual track. Here you have micro timing sections. Your banks are all here with each of the patterns on here. You can hold function and this to extend the length or shorten the length of your loop. You have conditional trigs, which is kind of like Electron's genius thing going on. I think with that, that will get you up and running and get you started on this thing. And then, like I said, there's some links to check out below for some more in-depth tutorials and some other alternate thoughts about these. So be sure to check out the links below and just see what you think from other users. And that brings me to my final point. What are my personal thoughts? People always want to know what your personal thoughts on this. You can tell that I like this machine a lot, so that goes without saying. I also own the Digitact, and I've twice now owned the Octatrack and sold it. It's not that the Octatrack isn't awesome. I loved the Octatrack, and I made some really cool stuff on it, but I found that it was kind of killing my creativity a little bit. It's a little bit menu divey for me, and if I didn't use it for like a month or 2 weeks, every time I got back on it, it wasn't like riding a bike. It was like having to go, oh yeah, what is that key combo again? I think the Analog Rytm I traded for the Octatrack because I traded the Octatrack to buy the Analog Rytm because this, for me, is more performance-minded, and a lot of the stuff is broken out in such an intuitive way that I really, really enjoy this machine. However, that being said, there's no substitute for trying it yourself. Don't ever listen to a review or see someone trick you into how awesome they are with that machine into thinking you'll be awesome with that machine too. You might be, but the truth is, everybody has a different brain. Everybody thinks differently. Our creativity is built upon different foundations, and you just won't know if you like something until you try it. With today's day and age, with like Amazon and return policies, there's no reason why you can't set aside some time, purchase something, try it out really well, take care of it, and know within a couple of weeks whether it's working for you or not. The purpose of this guide is to get you maybe started. If you buy this and you want to try it out, get you started so that you can quickly jump in. You don't waste time trying to learn all the menu functions, and you can just try the machine out and see if it works for you. There's also reverb, which I use a lot. You can buy stuff used, and oftentimes you can sell it for just as much as you bought it for, or you can sometimes make a profit, or you can lose like $50 or $100. And depending on the price of the item and the amount of time you used it, like on reverb, you could buy it and use it for 3 months and then sell it. And if you lost $50, it's like a rental fee. I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So yeah, I don't think you have anything to lose. I think you should try something out if it's doesn't seem intimidating to you and seems like something that would work well with you. So try it out and use this tutorial to basically get you up and running and see if you like it. If you like this video, I have a Patreon page where you can leave me a tip and help me get better camera equipment eventually and better recording gear so I can do better videos in the future. You'll get like sample packs for free. There's some rewards there. You can also give me a thumbs up, and you can subscribe, or you could share this post. That's really helpful as well. If something was done wrong, thumbs down for sure. Leave a comment in the sections below and give me some feedback, because I always want to improve, and I'm really doing this because I love it and I want you to love it too. So yeah, all feedback is welcome. I also dig it when people tell me where they're from. Sometimes that's really cool. People from all over the world watch my videos and it just blows my mind. So if you want to, throw in like hi from Cincinnati or hi from Belarus or something like that. Okay, I think that's gonna about wrap it up for this. I forgot one last thing. So my overall thoughts are that I love this thing, but I do find that I use the Digitact a little bit more, just because the Digitact is just so straightforward and fun. Although I do have a lot of fun with this. If I could only have one, I would personally choose the Digitact, because for me, for my brain and the way it works, the Digitact is really easy and simple, and I don't have to worry about a lot of different things. However, every time I jump on the Analog Rytm, like just now, I have so much fun messing with it live, and I kind of miss those functions on the Digitact. I really wish there was ways to tweak things with the scenes and performance mode, but I guess that's the difference in price. This is like a $1,500 machine versus a $700 machine with the Digitact. So yeah, it's up to you. But I think as far as drum machines go, this is probably one of the best drum machines on the market. So cool. I hope you like that, and I will talk to you in the next video. All right, bye.